The Labour leader is now facing growing pressure to resign, with the possibility of the deputy leader facing a police investigation. You might think this would dominate the headlines, yet it's still a developing story. If the police do decide to issue me with a fixed penalty notice, I would, of course, do the right thing and step down. Keir Starmer's leadership is now teetering on the edge, as whispers of a rebellion within the Labour ranks grow louder. What was once perceived as a stable and calculated political strategy is quickly unraveling into a chaotic mess. Fractures within his own party are now threatening to tear his leadership apart. Beneath the polished speeches and carefully managed public appearances, a storm is brewing, one that could not only change the future of the Labour Party but also the course of British politics. Behind the scenes, the foundations of Starmer's leadership are starting to crumble. Senior Labour figures, some of whom once firmly stood by him, are now questioning whether he is the right person to lead him into the next general election. If you lose this election, particularly if it's a heavy loss, will you resign as the leader of the Labour Party? Yes, I would. The message to those thinking about getting involved in any form of disorder is clear. If you engage in such actions, the full force of the law will be applied. The dissatisfaction within Labour is no longer confined to private whispers. It's now growing into a full-fledged movement that could force Starmer's hand sooner than he anticipates. While no official statements have been made, political insiders suggest that discussions about Starmer's potential resignation are already happening behind closed doors. A number of Labour MPs, particularly those from traditional working-class strongholds, feel he has strayed too far from Labour's roots. His cautious, centrist approach, aimed at appealing to a broad voter base, is now alienating the very people who were once the backbone of the party. The timing couldn't be worse. The nation is demanding new general elections, with public pressure mounting against Starmer's leadership. His approval ratings are plummeting, the opposition is gaining ground, and Starmer faces the biggest political challenge of his career. Labour's identity is at stake, a party divided not just by policy but by trust. A petition demanding an immediate general election has surpassed 1 million signatures, an expression of anger over Labour's tax rates and broken promises. Some senior Tories have hailed this petition as an indication of growing frustration with Labour. More and more MPs within the party believe Starmer has abandoned Labour's core principles, prioritising corporate interests and political manoeuvring over genuine representation of the people. Labour has long been seen as the party of the working class, the one that fights for social justice, workers' rights, and economic fairness. But under Starmer, many believe the party has lost its way. Policies once championed by Labour, strong support for trade unions, bold action on inequality, and a commitment to public services, are now sidelined in favour of a more moderate, business-friendly approach. This shift has sparked cries of betrayal among the party's left-wing members. For many, Labour's current direction feels like a death sentence for small businesses, and the need for a change has never been more urgent. The petition calling for another general election has 1 million signatures, and discussions in Parliament are sure to follow. Many within the party believe Starmer is too focused on appeasing the political centre and too hesitant to take strong stances on critical issues. Even centrist and right-leaning Labour MPs are growing frustrated, worried that Starmer's leadership lacks inspiration, and his controlled messaging is not enough to mobilise public support. This growing internal divide presents a serious problem. Labour cannot afford to enter the next general election as a fractured party. If MPs and party members cannot rally behind their leader, what does that say to the voters? Public opinion is turning against Starmer. Approval ratings continue to decline, and the British people are becoming more frustrated with his failure to deliver meaningful change. In fact, Starmer has become so unpopular that he's now seen as less favourable than Elon Musk in some public polls. Starmer's policies have become a punching bag for many. Farmers, pensioners, and working parents are all feeling the brunt of his decisions. The cost of living crisis continues to worsen. While Starmer speaks of long-term economic stability, many people feel that his words are nothing more than empty rhetoric, devoid of real substance. Wages have stagnated, inflation has driven up the cost of living, and working-class voters who once trusted Labour are now looking elsewhere. Starmer promised to fight for fair wages and ease the economic burdens on struggling households, but critics argue that his government has failed to take bold, decisive action. Home ownership, once an achievable goal for many, is now out of reach for an entire generation. Rent prices have soared, and first-time buyers are finding themselves priced out of the market. Critics say Labour's housing policies lack the urgency needed to tackle this crisis head-on. The public is growing weary of waiting for concrete solutions. While Starmer continues to project confidence, the internal tensions within his party tell a different story. A faction of Labour MPs is pushing for a change in leadership, believing that a more charismatic and decisive figure is needed to energise the party. The whispers of a potential leadership challenge are becoming harder to ignore. Figures such as Angela Rayner, the party's deputy leader, and Wes Streeting, the shadow health secretary, have already been named as possible successors. Rayner, with her working-class background, could appeal to Labour's traditional voter base, while Streeting, a more centrist figure, could maintain the party's appeal to middle-class voters. If a leadership challenge were to emerge, it could plunge Labour into a bitter civil war just months before the next election. For Labour to win back the trust of its traditional voter base, particularly in the north of England and the Midlands, it must act quickly. Starmer has failed to regain the support of these voters, and polling suggests they are still dissatisfied with the party. Meanwhile, younger and more progressive voters, who overwhelmingly supported Labour under Jeremy Corbyn, are feeling increasingly alienated. These voters accuse Starmer of being too hesitant on key issues like climate action and workers' rights, and they are beginning to turn to smaller left-wing parties like the Green Party. The pressure is mounting. Labour is running out of time to address these fundamental issues, and Starmer's leadership is hanging in the balance. The country is looking for bold, decisive leadership, and it remains to be seen whether that will come from Starmer or someone else. With the political landscape shifting rapidly, the stakes could not be higher. One wrong move could alter the course of British politics, and the future of the Labour Party itself could be on the line.